Devo confessarvi una cosa, ragazzi. Il deep dive che abbiamo visto di World of Warcraft Midnight l'avevo fatto giusto così tanto per, una sorta di piccola tradizione, nonostante sapete bene che mi sono molto distaccato da World of Warcraft da un po' di tempo a questa parte. Però devo ammettere che alcune cose che hanno mostrato, tra cui l'housing, mi ha davvero sorpreso, in senso positivo. Soprattutto l'housing. Credo che abbia un grandissimo potenziale. E avevo visto che avevano fatto anche un developer Q&A, bello lungo, con tante domande e cose del genere, e una tentazione ce l'ho avuta di vedere anche quello insieme. Poi è arrivato qualcuno che mi ha detto no, guarda, l'housing devi guardare il Q&A perché spiegano un sacco di cose in più. E indovinate un po'? Beh, ragazzi, non posso esimermi. Quindi, anche se avevo in programmazione qualcun altro, facciamo un'eccezione, cambiamento all'ultimo, e voglio vedere il Q&A di Midnight, d'accordo? Così approfondiamo anche un po' di cose proprio sul gioco, ma sappiate che io sto cercando delle informazioni nello specifico. Ok? Quindi, come al solito, via l'audio di sottofondo. Eccoci qua. A sto giro non ci sono i sottotitoli ufficiali in italiano, ci sono quelli in inglese generati automaticamente, tradotti in italiano, e quindi abbiate pazienza, sono quello che sono, ci saranno sicuramente degli errori, d'accordo? Quindi, pronti? Si va.
Hello, we are live. Welcome to the World of Warcraft Midnight Q&A. I'm Randy Jordan, and I go by Kyvax on the Warcraft community team. We recently asked WoW players on forums and social media sites to submit questions, and you delivered. So, we've got 3 leaders of the WoW development team here. Please introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Ian Hasikostas.
Ah, c'è pure Ian, ok.
Hi, my name's Paul Cubitt. I'm Associate Game Director on World of Warcraft, working on the Midnight expansion.
Hi, I'm Maria Hamilton. I'm the Design Director for WoW.
We got a lot of questions, and I want to get right to them. We're going to start with some housing questions. So, Cyglaive on the forums asked, it actually said, during a Gamescom interview, it was mentioned that Horde players would be able to use Alliance-style housing exteriors and vice versa. However, in a recent blog post, it was stated that the housing styles would be faction-locked. Can we get clarification on that?
Yes, there was a bit of confusion definitely around the Gamescom messaging there. As we just saw in the deep dive video, the neighborhoods ultimately are anchored in specific locations in the world. If you are in the Alliance neighborhood, you are on the outskirts of Stormwind in the Elwyn area. If you are in the Horde neighborhood, you're on the outskirts of Orgrimmar. While private neighborhoods can be cross-faction, you can have your guildmates, you can have your friends of the opposite faction move in, the general setting, the exterior houses there are going to reflect the location. The NPCs that are wandering around the neighborhood, again, are anchored in that place in the world.
Ok, vabbè, ci sta come immersività e come ambientazione.
If you're in the Horde neighborhood, the home exteriors need to reflect the
Ciao,
Horde
Nambi.
aesthetic. Take that up with the Orgrimmar HOA if there's a concern.
Speaking of things wandering around, a player named Hey Hey on the EU Spanish forums asked, I know there are plans for combat pets to appear in housing. Are there also plans for hunter pets?
Yes, so pets are something in general that we're working towards. At release in Midnight, battle pets won't be available to be placed just yet. I think something that we need to solve to make that work on the engineering side is actually making sure that they can path and move comfortably around whatever configuration of objects you might happen to place in your home or in your yard.
Ok, è un problema tecnico.
Delivering that shortly after launch. Alongside that, we do want to add the ability to place your mounts in your mount collection. If you want to have them on a hitching post in your yard, that's something we'd love to deliver as well. Hunter pets are probably trickier. Those are character specific, and housing is an account-wide system really tied to your warband. And so, pulling from specific characters' hunter pet stable would probably be much more challenging. I'll never say never, but that's not in the plans currently.
Mannaggia, è giusto che c'avevo l'Hunter.
Reddit asked, how will the trading post housing items work? Let's say there's a chair on the trading post. Will we have to buy the chair multiple times if we want a set of 4 in our house? Will there be a 10-chair bundle for a set price? Or will the purchase give us infinite amount of chairs?
This is something we spent a good amount of time thinking about. There's going to be lots of ways that you can get decor, starting in 11.2.7 and then into Midnight through achievements, through crafting, through completing just the campaign of Midnight and so on. And we ran into a lot of the same questions that you asked, the person who asked this question.
Yes.
Yes, and for that reason, we're actually just not going to have them on the trading post. At least for the first few months, there should be plenty of other ways that you could start gathering decor for your house. And then you won't have to make that hard decision between
Ok,
do I want this
quindi
chair versus
non
this
nel
cool
trading
mount versus
post,
cool transmog.
però altri modi.
Another question comes
Probabilmente
from
vogliono
Xanther
legarlo
on the
più alle
forums.
quest all'inizio.
Xanther asked, how will outdoor housing plots work? If I want a certain plot and it's taken, do I have the option to try another instance?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Essentially, when you want to move house, you're just going to say, yep, it's time to move. It's all going to get packaged up for you. Paul likes to say that a mage comes along and puts it into an arcane ball for you. Don't know if that's actually,
That is what happens.
Oh, totally. Okay. And then you can go to wherever you'd like to sort of deploy your house, and it just comes right back out of the bubble, set up exactly how you had
Ottimo.
it. So you can move around neighborhoods.
Niente
you can move
spot
around,
limitati
different plots within
tipo
the neighborhood.
Final Fantasy
Yeah,
XIV, che questa è una
totally
gigantesca
transformed.
stronzata. Almeno possono
Celia
farlo
on the
tutti e
German
spostarsi
WoW
come gli pare.
forums asked,
Bene.
will there be updates to the guild system in Midnight?
I think most of the updates we see to the guild system are going to be in the form of neighborhoods. We expect to see a lot of guilds, especially guilds who are like playing a lot actively with one another, to build guild neighborhoods where you'll be able to live alongside one another. So instead of the typical ways you're interacting with one another in WoW, whether that's raid nights, Mythic Plus nights, PvP, whatever it is you choose to do, you might also just start running into one another in the morning when you go out to get the paper. And so really looking forward to seeing guilds build stronger connections.
Questa potrebbe essere una grandissima figata e vediamo che cosa fanno apposta per le gilde. Sia il sistema di housing in WoW.
There since the beginning, and there's definitely room for improvement. Our focus for Midnight, though, really was on the housing integration side of it, and the rest of the system is something we hope to get back to in the near future.
A highly upvoted question on Reddit comes from Chilligok. Chilligok asked, will we ever get another texture update for older races, especially compared to Earthen? The hairstyles are outdated now.
We do have a couple which are coming in Midnight. As you complete the Amani campaign in Zul'Aman, you will be able to unlock some cool cosmetics for Darkspear Trolls, some cool hairstyles, and actually skin colors as well. And so if you have any Darkspear Trolls on your account, you play through the campaign, you'll be able to get some cool customizations. And this is one of the ways that we do try to approach this, is as it's appropriate to the story, we'll look for cool ways that you can integrate cosmetics into your own character. That's not the only way that we might do that.
Vabbè, questa non è male come soluzione, non è solo un generico upgrade tecnico. Ti fa proprio sostituire alcune cose.
Customizations, hairstyles, you name it.
Sì, è vero che puoi espandere la casa.
Bring them up to parity with the very newest options. It's not something we're able to do all at once, but particularly where it makes sense and fits the story, we're excited to keep adding them. Our long-term goal is to get to a place where every race, whether brand new or one of the original ones, has roughly the same number of options.
So, as we just saw in the deep dive,
sì,
and
questa è
going
un'altra
back to
cosa
the
figa.
Gamescom announcement, we have a system coming called Prey. And I have a
Oh,
couple
ecco,
questions
questo ho
here
capito
about Prey.
poco.
System of Cells on Reddit asked, will the Prey system make all mobs in the target zone more challenging, or only the Prey target plus world quests unique to that system?
Yeah, it will affect everything in the zone for you. So if you have chosen to go into the zone chasing a nightmare mode prey, everything is going to be much harder for you. It's based on an aura that's put on you, sort of like it's almost like an affliction in a way, or a torment. And as you move through that zone, it's going to be harder.
And the player in Prey is on their own?
They are when they finally wear down that boss. If it's in one of the harder modes, then you need to go mano a mano. If it's in the normal mode, then the rest of the players in the vicinity can help you out.
Gotcha. The WoW
c'è una bella
creator,
differenza
Fandy,
tra normal e
asked,
altro.
Is
Ok.
the Prey system planned to be a part of the world row in vaults?
Yeah, in one way or another. As we build our expansion, one of the last things that comes in is specifics on rewards. So we don't have the specific details now, but when we do look at Prey, we look at it as similar in difficulty and sort of player activity to the types of things that you do in Delves. And Delves do take up that bottom row of the world row in the Great Vault as well. So we do expect, if you're running Prey, you're going to see better rewards in that row in one way or another.
Va bene, quindi le ricompense più o meno
I
come
wanna
i
get to
Delves.
one of the most highly upvoted questions we saw across all channels. This is from Weird Dandom Ally on Reddit. And that goes, any plans to rejuvenate the glyph system? All classes could take advantage of it for class visual customizations like warlocks have with their pets and druids with their forms.
Yeah, so there isn't a glyph overhaul
Io mi ricordo di
plan
aver
for
speso un
Midnight
sacco di
at
soldi
launch
per
in
un glifo in
particular, but the
particolare,
general
tanto
question
tempo fa.
of more customization for spell visuals, transforms, things along those lines, that's one that we're also very excited about and always looking to offer more customization, more cosmetic self-expression where possible. And the glyph system is a great vehicle for this. It's not the only vehicle, but where it makes sense, that's definitely one of the avenues we would use.
Speaking of highly upvoted questions, we got a lot from the PvP community. I want to ask a few of those. So starting with Keth Cup on Reddit, the question is, do you have any plans on making PvP less daunting for new players?
We absolutely do, yeah. We're really excited to introduce a new feature called Training Grounds. This is a feature where players can enter battlegrounds fighting alongside other players against game-controlled opponents. So instead of fighting against other PvPers, potentially people who have been playing this mode much longer than you, who have better PvP gear than you, and are going to wipe the floor with you, you'll be able to fight against some opponents, so you'll have a little bit more of a satisfying win rate against. And because of that, we think this will be a pretty good on-ramp for people who are PvP curious, who want to get into PvP, but feel like there's just too much of a steep on-ramp because of those daunting aforementioned players who want to wipe the floor with you. This is going to start with a couple battlegrounds that players will be able to jump into with Training Grounds, and we'll see where we go from there.
Ma questa è una
We love
ottima
PvP,
idea,
broadly speaking. I think
perché
one of
uno
the
dei problemi del
challenges
PvP è proprio
is
questo.
It can be very daunting to get in, as the question implies. If you're getting into PvP for the first time, you're in some cases jumping into a pool that's filled with sharks who've been doing this for 20 years.
Sì, ne so qualcosa.
There's so much, there's nothing quite like World of Warcraft PvP and that style of conflict, that style of combat. And so really our philosophical approach as we move into Midnight to really try to rejuvenate and grow the scene is to broaden the base of that pyramid so we can kind of lift the whole thing up and help all levels of it, whether you are the most hardcore person competing for titles at the end of every season.
Vedi, ecco,
Everyone
anche
will be
uno non
better
interessato al
served if
PvP
people
dice,
feel like
vabbè,
they
però
can
così lo
actually enter
provo.
this community for the first
Esatto.
time and discover what is so great about WoW PvP.
Let's all be sharks.
So eventually.
The PvP player and creator known as Supatees had the most highly upvoted question on our forums. He wrote, in the War Within, we saw major reward improvements and restructuring for Mythic Plus, which improved participation. Are there plans to look at the current reward structure for PvP, such as rating cutoffs or additional rewards?
There are definitely plans to look at this. One thing I can say that will be changing at launch in Midnight and the first season of Midnight is that top tier cutoff coming down from 2,400 to 2,300 for those rewards and titles. I think looking at how MMR has evolved and how the rating ecosystem has played out, that's been a bit too exclusive even for some of our best players. Broadly speaking, beyond that, I think there's a lot more that we would like to do with the system. That's not necessarily going to be happening right at launch in Midnight, but if you look, for example, at what we changed with Mythic Plus and new titles and new structure and things like the Resilient Keystone system in War Within, those changes came in War Within patches.
Io questo non lo so
So as
per
we
niente
look
perché
to
PvP non l'ho
PvP and
fatto
its
neanche un
evolution over
po'
the course of
in
Midnight,
War
that's
Within,
definitely
solo la
an area that we want
campagna
to focus on.
e i
Got
dungeon
another
e i
one.
delves
Zandon
e qualche
on the
raid.
WoW forums wrote,
Però sempre in
will War
singolo.
mode receive more well-needed attention? More activities like zone objectives or rotating events? Maybe a free-for-all treatment?
Yeah, we're adding a whole new area into the Voidstorm zone, a giant war mode area which reflects the same space as the Slayer's Rise battleground. If you watch the deep dive video, you got to see that. That Slayer's Rise is also made manifest in the zone
Questa
itself.
la
And this is,
zona
you've played war mode in
praticamente
past
di World
expansions,
PvP,
that
no?
we've taken a couple war mode
Esatto,
areas and
ma
had
mai
maybe one in
interessato.
each zone, one in Ringing
Però
Deeps
vabbè,
and one in Isle of Dorn, where
contento che
PvP,
ci
when you
sia.
enable war mode, you'll have some special, unique activities. We took all those and glumped them all together right into this Slayer's Rise area, and so there's going to be a huge PvP playground if you have war mode on, be able to do lots of cool world quest activities, reasons to just kill one another, and even if you don't have war mode enabled, there'll still be PvP-themed content for folks doing world quests up in that area.
Why would you not have war mode enabled?
That's a very good question. Yeah.
No, per carità.
Yeah, it's sharks.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Dai, che stai facendo una quest e ti arriva uno stronzo a ucciderti che sei
Maclemente26 on Reddit
lontanissimo.
asked a question that we saw a lot of, which is, When can we expect reputations from expansions prior to Shadowlands to become Warbound reputations?
So yeah,
Oh,
taking full accountability here. I know that when we rolled out the warbands, we said that we were going to work our way backwards through reputations. We haven't made progress as quickly as we would have liked. We got some of the Shadowlands reputations, but not the Covenant ones. This is something we're going to pick up and resume. I can't commit to a definite timetable, but in the long run, we don't want this, just internal disparity between how different expansions reputations are handled, and we'll continue to start with the most recent.
auguri a
work our way
farle
backwards.
tutte.
Thank you. 610 on Blue Sky said, War Within is the first WoW expansion without a legendary. Can we expect anything in Midnight, or is the team taking time to reevaluate what place legendaries have in the modern game?
I think we always want to avoid things seeming formulaic, where it's like, okay, you can expect it's a new season, there's going to be a new legendary, this is how it's going to work. Legendaries should always remain special. They should feel like these are items that have clear stories behind them and feel worthy of that special orange color. And yes, we're also looking always at issues with how they're awarded. We want to make sure they feel special, but also don't turn into something where it feels bad or grindy because they feel required if you want to be competitive. There's a fine line to walk there. There aren't currently any planned for the first tier of Midnight, but as we face certain foes down the line,
Vabbè,
it may
quindi
make
no.
sense for some of the
Grazie a
items
Dio mi
to
interessa
yield
poco
to have
anche
that orange
questo.
color, and we'll cross that bridge when we get there.
Però in effetti è vero
I
che
want to
questa
ask
cosa con i
some
leggendari
lore
pesa.
questions. So, as Mira asked, will we be getting any more background information on story regarding Lyrath Windrunner? Sorry. Any of the other Windrunner family members, perhaps?
Absolutely. I don't want to talk too much about patches, but certainly in Midnight, as we go into the Spire, you will have the opportunity to really get a brother's view of his sisters and an opportunity to learn a lot more about what happened and what's happening in that place. And I mentioned before, we're going to see the sisters.
And Grody Toady on Blue Sky wants to ask about trolls. So here come all the names. Where is Vol'jin's story in all of this? I'm hoping we find a way to weave Vol'jin, Talanji, Zul'jin, Rokan, Zul'Jan, and Zul'Jara into a cohesive story about troll unity or cooperation.
Well, right out of the gate in Midnight, you're not going to see that combination of trolls, but you will see a combination of some trolls as we continue into patches and move forward. We're very much focused on what's going on with the trolls as well as what's going on with the Blood Elves. They have not always been on the best of terms for reasons. And
direi.
there's definitely a story to be told about their relationship, and all of those folks come into that story.
Groxy on Blue Sky said, Midnight sees the Paladin forces of Azeroth fighting back the Void at the Sunwell. Can we hope to see more lore about the Tauren and Azeroth's sun god Ansha? Eyes of the Earth Mother told us how he and Elune slash Musha fought possibly the Void in ancient Azeroth.
Well, we are going to hang out with Desco a little bit in the Eretor's Journey portion of our campaign at Midnight. And I feel like we certainly are going to look at how the Tauren view their mythologies, perhaps later in The Last Titan.
Okay, good. Let's talk about add-ons. The WoW
Uh,
creator Polka TV said, given the upcoming removal of many boss mod tools, how do you plan to preserve the intended difficulty of encounters once these tools are no longer available?
So yeah, this is a great
bella
question. For some extra
domanda.
context, I think folks are going to see in the next day or two, as some of the media interviews we've done in the last day.
Scusate se faccio una pausa, molti non lo sanno, ma l'ho saputo da poco anch'io, perché non è che seguo poi tantissimo tutto quello che riguarda WoW, ma inizia a esserci la rimozione di alcuni add-on. Già, uno di questi, se ho ben capito, è DBM, Deadly Boss Mod, che penso che chiunque abbia installato. Proprio è un add-on che io che ho installato di default da non mi ricordo quanto tempo, ma proprio da 1 milione di anni. Ecco, mi sa che se non ho capito male, quello viene rimosso, e così come tanti altri add-on che riguardano le boss fight. E questo però crea un problema, perché molti boss del passato sono disegnati dando per scontato che ci siano questi add-on. Quindi, ecco.
So
Come
yeah,
la
this is a
risolvono?
great question. For some extra context, I think folks are going to see in the next day or two, as some of the media interviews we've done in the last day go out, that we are rolling out so changes to the add-on API with the launch of Midnight. And so that is going to remove the ability for add-ons to read in real time combat state and combat information specifically. And one of the big reasons why we're doing this with
Quindi
the
è
launch of the
più
new
che con i
expansion
boss.
is so that we can really build all of our combat, our encounters around that expectation, around this new ecosystem. As we've been discussing over the course of the year, really the main goal with this shift is to create a level playing field where external tools are no longer felt to be required in order to engage in the content, at a competitive level.
Ve lo dico subito, ragazzi, sono assolutamente d'accordo con questa decisione. Il livello di difficoltà e la configurazione dei fight devono essere decisi dall'azienda. Perché finora, era arrivato a un punto che era un delirio. Non è possibile. La corsa a compilare Weak Auras o altre cose era francamente folle. Non si poteva continuare così. Quindi sono assolutamente d'accordo.
And also to shift some of the things that we are testing when it comes to difficulty, maybe away from Twitch reactions and how quickly you can run to the circle or diamond marker that your add-on told you to run to, and rather more of the collaborative coordination that have traditionally marked cooperative PvE in WoW. But the goal is to keep difficulty largely the same. In terms of how many pulls it takes to down a boss for your guild, whether you are aiming for ahead of the curve and defeating Heroic, or whether you're pushing into Mythic or whatever else, overall it should take you about the same amount of time to accomplish what you're used to accomplishing. It's just that difficulty may come in slightly different places. Without add-ons to solve mechanics for you in real time, it may well be the case that we just need to give
Vostre
you a
precedenti
couple
si
more seconds to
uccidono
get
anche in
into
solo. No,
place,
non è quello il
or that there
punto.
should be one fewer add to interrupt or what have you.
Perché ci sono delle
We are going
modalità
to be
per
rolling
giocarli
out,
anche
we're actually going to be launching alpha
allo stesso
with the raid
livello
boss
per
available
delle
for testing
ricompense. E lì
early
come si
on.
fa?
We have a ton of native improvements to the UI, like boss timers, boss alerts, so you can see a timeline of upcoming boss abilities, nameplate improvements, cooldown manager improvements, and more, to, again, kind of create a unified experience that's baked into the UI. But the goal at the end of the day is for difficulty to remain where it was. And we'll
Agoscuro,
be making
grazie del
tuning
follow,
changes in
benvenuto.
alpha and beta, as well as, of course, once these encounters are live, to make sure that things are landing in the right place and players still feel well equipped to overcome the challenges in front of them.
Following that,
Bene.
Sped Bros
Ci
on
riusciranno?
Reddit
Bella
asked,
domanda,
"What
perché
is
è
your
un
plan
cambiamento
for
radicale
upkeep
questo
and
qua. Ripeto, io
development
sono
of these now
d'accordissimo,
built-in
ma
add-ons?"
Yeah, so I think, the functionality that we're pulling into the base UI is something that, as always, we're going to be evolving in response to player feedback. Again, part of why we're very excited to get people having a look at these right at the start of alpha is so that we have the entirety of the alpha and beta cycle to iterate on them before Midnight launches. And then, of course, as always, even after the game is live, we're going to continue to add functionality based on the player requests and the feedback that we're receiving.
Ossicron on the WoW
questa è un
forums
po' vaga,
said,
però vabbè, dai, ci
"Sculpting
può
your
pure
UI
stare.
over the years is almost like working on a classic car. Fine-tuning with different fonts, color palettes, and even different types of glow alerts. What is the depth of the available customization, and are there plans to expand it in the future?"
Ne dubito fortemente che
So
sarà a
there's a couple
livello degli
facets to this
add-on.
question. First off, couldn't agree more that I think UI customization and using add-ons to tailor the aesthetic of a UI, how information is presented and where it's presented, I think are one of the hallmarks of the WoW experience and really one of the strengths of the game for going on 21 years now. There are no plans to eliminate or remove that. The approach we've taken in changing the way the add-on API
Ecco, no,
works
va bene,
really
questo non
is
è
just focused
sostituito.
on access to that real-time information. There'll be details coming out very soon from our UI engineering team on exactly how this works. But whereas in the past, when we have restricted aspects of what add-ons can do, we tend to just kind of wall off sections of our UI and say add-ons can't touch this at all. But when it comes to things like nameplates or unit frames and the like, that would have been an unacceptable approach here because that aesthetic customization is so essential. So there's a brand new system that's been created where essentially, pieces of
Zygor
information
non ne ho
about what's
idea.
going on in combat are put in a black box. And add-ons can paint that box pink or yellow or green or make it bigger or smaller, but what they can't do is know exactly what's inside the box and use that to drive logic. In addition to that, the new UI functionality that we're adding, whether it's improved nameplates or whatever, have extensive customizations in terms of size, shape, location, aesthetic, all of the edit mode functionality and more. But we have no intent of pulling back in any way from the aesthetic customization that add-ons have always offered.
Cutting to the chase, Felfer on the WoW forums asked,
Ciao Rust.
does this mean that existing add-ons like Deadly Boss Mods, Plater, or Details are going to break?
They will change significantly. I think certainly, day one, if you're logging into alpha and you try to enable them, I do not believe they will work due to changes in the API, but that's standard for any new expansion release. We are inviting the authors of a vast range of add-ons into our first week of alpha, so that's going to be coming up in just the next few days, to get their hands on these changes.
Vabbè, quindi comunque non è che stanno, diciamo, chiudendosi rispetto agli sviluppatori di add-on. Li stanno invitando a un nuovo compromesso, in sostanza. Vabbè, ci sta.
That is going to be changing, and that will affect those add-ons.
Okay, give me one more. This comes from Herix on the WoW forums. Herix said, what are the plans regarding improvements to the default RAID frames? In the effort to reduce the need for add-ons, RAID frames are a major pain point for healers, where the default Blizzard RAID frames are basically unusable without at least some external modification.
So yeah, we also have improvements coming to RAID frames, definitely with healers in mind. If you're, let's say, a Resto Druid who wants to be able to see all of your HOTS on a target, that's something that we agree is very important and needs to be baked into the default functionality.
E questo, minchia, il fatto che non sia possibile farlo già adesso è...
Major buffs and debuffs.
Ho usato il druido Resto per un po', anzi per parecchio. È diventato quasi il mio main in Wrath of the Lich King. Che bello che era.
The look and the feel and the size and the overall presentation of RAID frames. There just won't be certain functionality that is driving logic based on whether you happen to have a certain debuff or not. But all the rest.
Sì, stiamo parlando di add-on più che altro di nuova filosofia.
Blue Sky has a couple of questions. Given the connection to the Army of Light, the Sunwell and Blood Elves in general being their main rival in the Burning Crusade, will we see Draenei play any sort of role? Also, will Quel'Thalas be, with Quel'Thalas being part of the main world now, will there be any updates to Forsaken Lands?
Oh!
So the Draenei, obviously will be part of the fight, part of the battle that we're waging against the Void. But this chapter is focused on the Blood Elves and the Blood Elves struggle with some trolls, and we're gonna really be leaning in there more than we are with the Draenei. Opportunities, will come up for the Draenei to have their moment in the light, as it were.
Yeah. And as it goes for changes to Forsaken Lands, well, there's some minor changes as we've added Quel'Thalas and Zul'Aman into the main body of the Eastern Kingdoms to connect them in. So there's a tunnel in the Forsaken Lands that does connect it in. We are going to see some Forsaken characters as well. We're actually going to be working with a little bit of a deep cut, but Alonsis Fowl, the Archpriest, is going to be a character who appears and has a couple interesting interactions and chats with Eretor and Liadrin and others. So we're going to continue to build out Forsaken story as we continue.
Yeah, I think looking at how this is playing out and will continue to, I think we're very excited by some of the reception we've heard from Gamescom onwards about the changes to Silvermoon, Eversong, and more. Honestly, there was a bit of anxiety internally about the idea of revisiting an old location as for one of our zones, whether some players would view that as somehow lesser than coming up with a brand new place. But I think as people see this full splendor of Silvermoon, get a chance to revisit Eversong and what it's become all these years later, I think the
questo lo vorrò
excitement
fare in
around that really
effetti.
excites us too, because we'd love to be able to tell more news stories in some of the iconic locations that resonate throughout, everyone's fandom of Warcraft and what Azeroth is about. And so that will mean updating those locations, and I think that's something that we're excited to do more of as we look forward. Of course, The Last Titan will see us going back to Northrend, so that'll be a story for another day.
I think we
Oh, Northrend di nuovo.
We can tell different stories when we go to old places and see how characters have changed. See how the
Sì, la
faces have
porterò alla
changed. It's been a
campagna
really
di
cool
Midnight,
opportunity to do that
assolutamente.
in Midnight.
So che devo finire quella di The War
Let's jump to
Within
some
prima.
class talk. Thaxia on Reddit asked, are you planning on adding any new specs that can tank or heal for existing classes?
Not right now in Midnight. I think Devourer, Demon Hunter, and that new range DPS spec for them is our focus right now. But I think we've seen, whether it's this or whether it's augmentation, there's excitement around the idea of established classes getting new specs, and so that is something I think we are likely to
sì che è una
explore as we look
figata.
to the future.
Quindi c'era solo questo.
Zerotics
Ok.
on Reddit asked, throughout the War Within, some classes and specs received visual updates, and as a monk player, the update to Vivify was very appreciated. Are there any other classes or specs that can be revealed to be getting updated visuals in Midnight?
Yeah, there's a couple really cool Apex talents. So Apex talents are the new talents you'll be able to learn at the bottom of your
Ecco.
spec tree, and a lot of these have some fantastic visuals. Ones that jump out to me are the augmentation, where you summon a bronze dragon version of yourself from the future to fight alongside you for a little bit. The Frost Mage one as well. You summon a Hand of Frost that chases down your target and attack them. And so these are some of the new abilities that are going to get some new custom visuals. As far as like looking back at older visuals, as was the case with Vivify, this is something that we tend to do as we continue to build smaller patches. Most of our efforts for Midnight was building all the new stuff, but then as we continue building out the game, we look to the future. This is where we look back at, as we did with Vivify, find abilities where we can raise the floor and say like, okay, this one has aged not as gracefully as the rest of our visuals, and we can bring it up to par with the rest.
Following
Che
that,
vabbè, comunque
we found a question
spesso
from
capita
Nihenna
nelle
on the
espansioni.
German forums, and Nihenna asked, will the Void/Light topic be picked up in any additional class specs in the future? For example, Sunwell effects for a Holy Paladin, or perhaps Void powers for a Warlock?
I don't know about Void Warlocks quite yet, but we do have a existing Void themed spec, the Shadow Priest, my beloved Shadow Priest, which has a new ability, Tentacle Slam, which replaces Shadow Crash, and it is a giant voidy tentacle that slams down in a line in front of you and has a similar AoE component, but a lot more of a classic voidy Shadow Priest idea to it. We also have on one of our Apex talents, the Discipline Priest has Void Shield, which replaces your Power Word Shield with a Void-themed shield. So there are places where the Void and Light are leaking into our class design.
Going back to the support roles, Neo Saro on the EU Spanish forums asked, can we expect anything new regarding the support role in Midnight? Will it be expanded to other classes? Is it considered that it maybe didn't work as expected for augmentation, and perhaps that just becomes a normal damage or healer?
So we're not planning on currently expanding it to other classes, but we're also not planning on changing augmentation to just fit into the existing niches. I think there's a lot of excitement around the idea of support, and I think we've seen players embrace that fantasy. I think we are still iterating on evolving that specialization and getting to a place where we can find a happy medium, where it can kind of realize that fantasy and
Su
be
questo non so
effective
molto.
as someone who bolsters the strength of your allies without also becoming so effective that it feels required in groups and kind of limits composition diversity. I think if we're able to achieve that, hopefully when we're able to achieve that, I do think we would like to look to what other ideas might apply a different fantasy to executing that concept.
I want to switch to the topic of delves. The WoW content creator True Villain Manny said, with delves integrated into the story, will there be certain scenarios that are locked in as we level? And will there be additional story in those alternative scenarios with delves?
Yeah, as we move through the campaign in Midnight, we will be entering delves with specific goals in mind. And that particular variant
Vabbè, le instance fanno parte della storia.
that we need
Alla fine è sempre successo.
to accomplish as we go through them. As always, our delves will have multiple variants to play through with different stories occurring. So yes, we will continue to use delves in this way, and you know, look for opportunities to continue to build quest content that enters delves.
So let's go inside. Varteris on the WoW forums said, will delves have even greater variety than in the War Within? Maybe a randomized puzzle to solve, a race, a whole new set of abilities?
Yeah, there's a couple ways that delves are changing. We have a new follower. Valera Sanguinara is going to come along, and she's going to mix things up. She's takes delves a little bit more seriously than Brand does, and a lot more snabbily as well. We also have some outdoor delves that are going to take place in outdoor spaces, and so this will just change up not only the vibe of the space, but your ability to move around, because you'll be able to use your ground mounts to get around. We're also just taking a look at the mechanics that we're using in delves in Midnight. So you can announce now that Midnight does not have any underwater delves. It also does not have any delves with a mechanic where you have to, say, pick up a candle or a totem and throw it ahead and continue doing that on a continued basis. Folks, let us know how they felt about those, and we're not moving forward with those designs in Midnight.
So Relentless on the EU Spanish forums asked a version of a question we got a lot. And Ian, what's stopping the World of Warcraft development team from doing a world revamp? Could we get a world revamp?
I mean, I think, you know, the idea of revamping everything at once is a terrifying one, frankly. But I think, as touched on earlier, you know, we definitely want to tell new stories in iconic locations. And in doing that, we would certainly do much more than just do a fresh coat of paint on the area. We would really reimagine it and bring it into the present day, as we have with Eversong. Our current focus is, of course, on the story that we're telling for the rest of the World Soul Saga. That will touch on some familiar locations. But down the line, I think the lessons we are learning and the experiences we're having, revisiting some locations, open the door to doing a lot more of it.
Sì, un cataclisma è bastato per quanto mi riguarda.
Solera, a French WoW player on X, Solera asked, without giving away spoilers, very important, does Midnight introduce any completely new elven tribes or expand on lesser known ones? Maybe the Kel'Durai?
Without spoilers.
Without spoilers.
That's a tough constraint.
Yeah.
Maybe.
That's right.
I don't think it's spoilery to say we're going to be learning a lot about the elves and the elves' relationships with one another, and that would include Quel'Durai.
Thank you.
Che mi piace
on the EU
oltretutto.
Spanish forums asked, with the Devourer specialization, all Demon Hunter abilities will use void effects and icons, even those shared by all three specializations. Has there been any consideration of extending this aesthetic customization to other classes?
So I think philosophically and narratively, what a Void Demon Hunter represents, what a Devourer Demon Hunter represents, is one who, rather than harnessing and channeling Fel energy, is channeling Void energy to turn it against those who originally wielded it. And so that is going to transform a wide range of their abilities. On the other hand, when we look at, let's say, a Fire Mage or a Frost Mage, they're not forsaking the arcane when they become a Fire Mage. And so Blink is still an arcane spell, and Counterspell is still an arcane spell, and so forth. And so I think when we look at other classes, we generally like to look at that broad base of multiple, areas of focus. And just because you specialize in one thing doesn't mean that that transforms all of the others. That said, touching on some earlier questions, when it comes to glyph spell customizations and other things that players may want to customize the look and feel of their abilities, there's always an opportunity there.
Another highly upvoted question all over the place.
Anche questo ha senso dal punto di vista di contesto.
Navarel on the EU German forums. Would you consider replacing the ready-made group in follower dungeons with characters from the player's warband?
Definitely something we are considering. Not something we're going to be able to deliver for Midnight, but ever since the introduction of both warbands and follower dungeons, this idea, this request has popped up. It's something that we're excited about internally as well. There's some technical hurdles to kind of pull that information down in real time and make it work, but it's something we do want to deliver down the line.
Ian's not lying about technical hurdles. There were multiple technical hurdles in the way. We're actually jumping over one of them with Training Grounds, where we're changing the way that some of those game-controlled characters or bots are built. to be that.
E infatti sono curioso di vedere come saranno i bots nei campi di addestramento del PvP, perché boh.
There are so many people on this development team that I would call technical hurdlers. Engineers, that's just what they do. They jump over hurdles. So, Maria, Silo on the WoW forums asked, will there be new mini-game type quests in Midnight?
Yes, there will be. We actually have a new mechanic that was created for Zulaman specifically, where you will do some, underwater stuff, but it's quite fun.
Oh, mannaggia.
It's the Amani Abyss style. You're gonna be going fishing troll style.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a revelation. I like that. While we're revealing things, Musselton on the WoW forums asked, I'm extremely excited for the Heronir. Can you share more information on their druid forms?
Well, conveniently,
Vabbè,
if you
qualcosa abbiamo
watched
già visto.
the deep dive, you saw
infatti.
a flash of those. Fundamentally, they all have quills to throw back to sort of the Heronir, but the tank form is a pangolin bear with sort of bat-like ears.
They all sort of got those ears.
Yeah, they
right?
got the ears and the quills, and we have a wolverine for our feral spec. We have an owl-like, quilled owl-like sort of boomkin. But best of all has got to be the swimming form, the swimming travel form, which is an axolotl.
Axolotl.
With quills.
We're all going to learn how to say axolotl.
Yeah, I probably said it wrong, but yeah.
No, I think you got it right. I think you did.
Okay, cool.
The reveal of the Heronir led to a very common question. And a version of that question that I want to ask you came from Racktoner on Reddit. Can you explain the decision-making process for which races to make playable races?
A lot of this comes down to narrative. There's no secret that we started talking to the Heronir in the War Within, and this was not a coincidence either. We wanted to build a familiarity with Orwena, with her crew, so you'd understand who these characters are when they do eventually become playable characters, as we've added them in Midnight. And of course, Midnight is part of a 3-chapter saga. We're in the middle chapter now. The Heronir are going to be a big, important part of this story, and this is why we chose to fold them in.
I feel bad often being the bearer of
A parentesi, non ho mica capito se sono Orda o Alleanza, forse tutte e due.
I know that it's not lost on us that there are widespread requests from players who would love to be a Sethrak or an Ethereal or the like. And part of the question there is, as Paul said, narratively, does it make sense for this faction to really join the Alliance and Horde if they're cosmic, extraplanar, or more neutral by nature? But the reality
Io
of
voglio
it is also, from a
Toscar.
production perspective, one of the things we grapple with is that adding a brand new race to World of Warcraft is one of the most
Voglio fare un
development-intensive things we
paladino
can do,
Toscar.
not just in one-time time commitment, but also in the long-term carrying cost for every set of armor we ever make for years and years to follow.
Ecco, esatto.
And it's something that we have to weigh very, very heavily when we do. Building a race that uses or shares an existing rig, an existing skeleton, if it's an elven race or the like, makes that more straightforward. Again, that's not to say we're never going to add very novel or meaningfully different races down the line, but it's a very high bar for us to clear when we look at how much ultimately it's going to mean that we have to do less of in other places forever in order to support this additional race alongside the others.
As I've said to you before, I want Saberon. I will wait. I will be patient. Please give me Saberon. So, Massive Bear on the WoW forums asked, will Heronir be unlockable in the 3 days of early access? I remember Earthen were not.
No, not during the first 3 days. Yeah. So during that early access, we want to make sure that we're letting players who are in that early access be able to play through the campaign and understand what's going on, but not getting any meaningful jumps ahead of anyone else who does not have that early access.
Meredith on the WoW forums.
Vabbè, sono solo
asked,
3 giorni.
How is Blizzard progressing in the war against toxicity in terms of the entire game?
Yeah, this is something that's a huge focus for us, and really there's many facets to the question and the discussion. I think when people say toxicity, there's a few different meanings perhaps or things that they're referring to. Some of it is just the overt hostile, harmful, antagonistic interactions that may
Imparate da
occur
Final
online
Fantasy
between players.
XIV, fine.
We're always
Non c'è
continuing
molto
to
da
shore
dire.
up our reporting tools, improve real-time monitoring, and get to a place where people who are disrupting our game world can be punished and ultimately
Bastano
removed
dei
from it
mod
if they
e la
continue to do
tolleranza
that.
zero,
On
fine.
the other hand, though, I think sometimes when people
State
talk about
2026
a
Midnight
community or a
si
portion of
vocifera
the game
febbraio
feeling toxic,
2026.
that can arise from just mismatched expectations. Like, if I am listing a group and I'm trying to run a raid, and I have done that raid 12 times, and I have been through groups that have wiped and learned the encounters, it's reasonable for me as a leader of a pug to only want players who have a certain level of experience, who have also been through those learning wipes and can succeed quickly. And so someone who is looking to learn may feel like, oh, this is very unwelcoming, this is kind of toxic, why aren't we, why am I not welcome here? And ultimately, that's an issue of aligning expectations. And I think there's a lot more that we can do on the pro-social side of things to help people find like-minded players and like-minded groups. There's nothing wrong with wanting to complete something quickly and efficiently. There's
Questa è
also
una
very
cosa-
certainly nothing wrong with wanting to learn and wanting a patient group.
E non so
If you
come
mix those two
risolveranno.
groups,
Io da sempre ho
there are
avuto
going to be
un'idea
some
al
conflicts
riguardo,
that
ma
emerge
non
naturally
so quanto sia
because of different
applicabile.
goals and expectations. So I think a lot of what we're focused on right now is also how we can help players better connect with like-minded individuals so that they can
Esatto.
have satisfying experiences where everyone is on the same page, working towards the same goals.
Thank you. I want to rip through some more housing questions. We've got several.
Oh,
Will we get to see our alts walking about or maybe sitting in a chair in our house, Paul?
Yeah, this is, we're looking at a lot of the same technical hurdles we talked about earlier, not only with being able to show players and other players in game, but also the pathing issues that Ian mentioned when it comes to being able to have your pets moving around and mouse moving around and whatnot. So not planned yet, but something we do talk about is a
Zeppe,
potential
buonasera.
feature. And I'll take this moment to say that like housing is one of those features which is really exciting for us because there are so many cool ways for it to grow. As we've built Midnight and we're sharing housing for the first time, we're going to be looking to you to tell us, what do you want? Is it that we want to see our house? Do we want more features? Do we want more decor? Do we want more ways that I can style the interior, exterior of my house? So let us know as you continue playing.
Yeah, philosophically, with a feature the size of housing,
Yeah,
this is
sono
something we've been
all'inizio.
working on for a very long time to really deliver what players have been expecting and what they deserve. But there comes a point when we're developing, especially a social feature, where we're almost hesitant to take it too far until we can actually share it with the community and understand what people are into, what they're maybe not into so much, what
questo
they
ha
want more
senso.
of, what they don't need more of. To make
Però se
sure
non
that
offrite
we're really
abbastanza,
putting
poi le
our
persone
time and
non
our
si appassionano.
resources in the places that are going to maximize that value for players. And so we're so excited to see people jump in the months ahead in alpha and beta, of course, and then beginning this December on the live servers and see where it goes from there.
So here's a very specific question from Alastral on the WoW forums. For housing and professions, it was stated that professions through all expansions will be able to craft housing items. Will
Esatto.
we be able to use this as a
Interessantissimo.
skill catch-up for the past expansions? For
Uh,
example, could a leather worker start at Wrath Leatherworking Skill 1 and craft Wrath-themed housing items to get all the way to level 75?
bella
These will give
domanda.
skill ups for sure. Yeah. I don't know how many of them will be available at level 1, for example. They may be tuned based on how elaborate the piece of decor is, but in general, yeah, once you get the level that you're able to build these things, then you continue to use them to level up.
So many very specific requests. I want to just give you this one. It comes from Spera on the WoW forums. Is it possible to add a functional bookshelf to player housing that could store and display collected in-game books? I have a lot of those.
Okay, this is what I'm talking about. That like once you share housing with the world, then 1,000 cool ideas come out, and so we start gathering up all these cool ideas and say, what can we do next? I can confirm there will be bookshelves. Whether those bookshelves will be functional, no, not at least to start. But this is a really cool idea for a collection that we're gonna take back to the team.
And couple
Un
more.
posto, io spero che
Devin
l'housing
here
sia anche
on
un posto
Reddit
per le
wrote,
collezioni, però,
"What
perché
is
questo
the
sarebbe
minimum player
importantissimo.
limit for a private or guild neighborhood? What happens if you make a private neighborhood with the minimum amount of people and then some of them go away?"
So this is something that's still a bit in flux. I think our current thinking is that just like signing a guild charter, you'll need 10 players to charter a private neighborhood. And that's for a couple of reasons. Part of it is, in order for neighborhood systems endeavors to really to function optimally, there's a certain number of players that are going to be expected to really drive the system. But also a piece of it is just server performance. Using an extreme example, if literally every single player online had their own personal neighborhoods, that would be potentially millions of simultaneous entire districts that need to get spun up, trying to make sure the servers don't melt here. And so striking a balance between what's going to be a good social experience, but also recognizing that players have friend groups of various sizes, and we want to be as
nato prima
flexible as
Minecraft o
possible.
Warcraft?
If we're able
Assolutamente.
to lower that number from where we're starting, it's something we would aim to do as we see how the tech side of it unfolds.
I saw an upvoted question on Reddit.
Chissà che
from
cosa
a
potrò
player named
creare io
Backstabeth.
giocando praticamente in
And this is
singolo.
a question I have myself.
Fairly a trustworthy fellow.
Very much. Will there be a list of collections and their sources for housing materials before housing goes live, so that we can begin to start hunting for those items, maybe reputation, achievement requirements? I'd love to know what I already have or what I'm close to having.
A ton of that is going to be visible in the alpha build coming up in just a day, but we'll have a blog summarizing it, so you don't need to go trawling for the information, and that way everyone can get a head start on checking off those achievements that you may have missed.
Let's come back to a couple of fun questions before we go here. Bale Samel on the WoW forums asked, "Are we getting a capybara, Loa? There are capybaras in the Yamani screenshots. The people yearn for a capybara, Loa."
Well, conveniently, there is one. His name is Philo, the capybara Loa of children.
Oh, nice. And I hope he has a
Il
prominent
il Loa
Absolutely,
capibara.
and a glorious necklace.
Bellissimo.
That's perfect. Loa's should be very well outfitted, I think. Finnerfin on the WoW forums asked, "Could we see the return of class quest lines? Legion was great, and it was fun to have a unique experience questing on alts."
Yeah, class quest lines come up really often as something people are excited about. We certainly do want to look more at, expanding on classes. We had a lot of fun doing the Warlock one, for example, not too long ago. But most recently, the best way for you to play some class quest lines, if you never played them, has to do with our lore walking, because where we had restrictions, for example, on the Xal'atath story, previously, a lot of people didn't know anything about Xal'atath and the knife, and by playing that lore walking, they had the opportunity to play that portion of the priest quest line. So we're hoping that
Minchia,
as we
questo
go
non lo so
through the
neanch'io.
blocking, you'll have that opportunity to see some of that. But
Pure
this
mi
is
sa che l'ho
certainly an
fatta.
area that the quest and narrative team would be thrilled to do more of.
Good.
Era di Legion?
It's our last question. And I cobbled this together from versions of this question that I found everywhere. I want to give a shout out to some of the people that I borrowed this from. Aziriel, Simplejack, Martian, Zuburius on our forums, all asked versions of this. Ian, how will player power progression be updated in Midnight, especially regarding Valor Stones?
So yes, so the way the upgrade system has played out over the last couple of expansions, I think we're happy with the sort of granular incremental progression that complements that spiky randomness of loot drops. But there is, and we agree with player feedback that we've heard, potentially
seconda parte
one,
della
two
BFA,
very moving pieces
ma mi sa che non l'ho fatta quella allora.
current system. So I can announce that Valor Stones as a currency will be going away in Midnight. You're already needing to gather the crests that you need, and that should be sufficient. We're also looking to streamline the system a little bit and more clearly pair individual crest tiers with appropriate gear upgrade tracks, so that there's potentially less confusion about what crest matches to what.
Anything further, Paul?
No, I think that's great. Yeah, yeah. Super excited.
We're over here pumping fists.
Yes,
We're
absolutely.
very
Yes,
excited.
Yeah, rip Valor Stones.
Well,
And on that note,
that's our time. Thank you, Ian, Paul, Maria. Thank you for taking the time, and thank you to everyone watching along. We've got Midnight Alpha testing starting very soon. We can't wait to see you there and welcome you home.
Ta-dan! Finito. Allora, posso dire in tutta onestà che io ero interessato principalmente alle cose di housing e qualcosa per le classi, francamente, perché alla fine c'è di Dungeon Ride, Delves e tutte queste cose. Sì, ok, nel senso ogni espansione ce ne sono di nuovi, li devi semplicemente guardare, goderteli per come sono e poi li giudichi poi. No? Poi qualche altro sistema, cose del genere, questa cosa gli add-on a bene che l'hanno approfondita, perché questa cosa era un sacco di confusione. Cambierà l'esistenza di molti giocatori questa cosa qua, perché il solo fatto di non avere più DBM, Deadly Boss Mod e anche altri add-on, se non altro non come se li immagina uno adesso, dandoli praticamente per scontati, no? Ecco, questo cambierà di brutto, ma come vi ho detto sono favorevole a sta cosa qua. Solo che ho qualche dubbio su come però questa cosa si concretizzerà. Perché se sostituiscono gli add-on, poi con cosa li sostituiscono, che cosa fanno? Però mi pare di aver capito che l'atteggiamento nei confronti degli add-on non è, diciamo, antagonistico, anzi li vogliono inserire tutti quanti all'interno dell'alfa, perché così possono ragionare su come modificare i propri add-on e renderli ancora utili in caso fossero cancellate la gran parte delle funzionalità. Poi sono un sacco di domande, di cose di approfondimento di piccole cose, qualcosa di lore, eccetera. Io continuo a ripetere che secondo me in questa cosa l'housing ha un potenziale devastante. Alcune cose le hanno azzeccato e sono d'accordo con loro che sì, a un certo punto avevi un sacco di idee, ma prima devi capire un po' che cosa piace ai giocatori, quindi introdurre un certo numero di cose e poi fermarsi è saggio, e credo che l'abbiano anche fatto in parte perché la quantità di feature per l'housing mi ha sorpreso. Io pensavo sarebbe stato più un contentino per i giocatori e invece no, è qualcosa di più profondo. E però io spero che sia abbastanza per attrarre un certo tipo di utenza. Non ne sono sicuro, lo scopriremo. Io sicuramente ci spenderò un po' di tempo perché è un lato del gioco che potrebbe piacermi molto. Se è più o meno come quello di Final Fantasy XIV e qual è il problema? È che l'housing di Final Fantasy XIV è parte di un ecosistema di come viene trattato il concetto proprio delle professioni dentro Final Fantasy XIV, che in WoW siamo molto lontani. Ed è proprio quello che dico, avrebbero forse dovuto abbinarlo con una revisione più profonda delle professioni, che in parte c'è stata, a dire la verità, ci sono un po' di cose in più, però secondo me non è abbastanza, ma capisco che vogliono vedere dove si arriva. Probabilmente uscirà Midnight, poi aggiusteranno con le patch e il grosso passo avanti lo faranno con l'espansione dopo. Probabilmente andrà così. È più o meno questo quello che penso. Quindi niente ragazzi, io sono contento di aver visto questo Q&A, perché così abbiamo più informazioni e adesso c'è l'alfa. Io probabilmente salterò tutto questo a meno che non mi diano qualche accesso particolare eccetera, e spero di avere il tempo di finire la serie di The War Within, che così arrivo a Midnight, che l'ho già bella che finita e magari ho anche rodato un paio di cose. Mo vediamo, non so come troverò il tempo, però vabbè, vediamo.